Hello and welcome to It's About Youth, the show that talks about issues that matter to youth. For today, we have representative from two universities, Abdullah Al-Mujahid, Chairperson of Congress IIUM, and Najwa Hureen, Secretary General of UM Student Union. They represent Gabungan Gerakan Mahasiswa, a group of 33 student unions who just last week voiced their demands for reforms for parties to consider heading into GE15. Thank you for joining both of you today.
Yeah, thank you for
So
inviting us.
now, just last week, a list of reforms were presented from these university students ranging from political reformation, education, social and economic security, reforms that are crucial not only to solve some of the issues plaguing students, university students and youth, but to also provide structural changes that can benefit the political system, education and country as a whole. So before we dive deeper into these reforms, I would very much like to know the messaging behind this list of demands. This G15, youth above 18, finally have a stronger voice to actually demand for reforms as it translates to votes. Are these demands, you think, long overdue, and are they timely as we head into G15? Najwa, you can go first.
Thank you so much for the question just now. As what I can say, at the first perspective itself, I would say this demand is actually long overdue. Since we can see for these 15 demands that we actually lay down, it actually need to consider from the previous, when the parliament still in the session, when the issue actually that always being raised by the student front itself, the student union itself. However, there's no change that has been made by the previous government. So, for example, in our 15 demands, in the scope of education, such as abolishing the University Act, creating a student union within the IPTAs, and also whether it is in the public or even in the private institution itself, and also free education for B40 students, and also subsidy for the M40 students. The demand is actually have been raised before, but there's no change, like I said before. Yeah. So I think because we're heading to representing the new elected leader, so I think the new government need to consider demands that we are expressing just now, and that's my perspective of it.
Okay, what about you, Mujahid? You know, all this list of reforms, do you think it's timely to have it now as we head into G15?
I would say our demand is long overdue, but it is the perfect times to demand during the election process, because it is I would say the perfect time, because all parties need to fulfill our demand during this time. This is a time where the student can pressure all parties to put the agenda of reform in their manifesto. So I would say it is overdue, but the peak of the demand is during the election process.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Najwa has listed a few of the reforms or demands just now, but as we go on, I will put it up, the list of reforms. There's 15 demands here. We will go through it one by one, or at least some of it. So, first and foremost, reform for political reformation. We listed them here. There's 2 term limits for PM, 5 for MPs, reducing the age limit for senators to 25, and more new faces of candidates. So those are some of the political reformation demanded by these student unions. Now, these reforms are echoed by many organizations who are fighting for a cleaner government. So not just student union itself. So, but specifically political reformation, why does it matter to youth? How would these reforms affect youth, Mujahid?
So, disclaimer, I want to clarify that this demand is was made by a student, but the benefit of this demand is for all Malaysian. We know that even after this, we student, we will leave the world of the student after this. So we make the demand is for the best of the Malaysian, not only for the youth only. And I would say that our demand in this manifesto that affect the youth, I want to highlight the two things, which is the candidates that new faces candidate that free from all corruption, and the second thing I would say in the reform part, the reducing of the senator, the limit of the age of senator. So we want to have the guarantee that youth have the safe seat in the policymaker, even though we not win any youngest candidate not win in the election, but we want the guarantee that youth have has been part of the policymaker, whether upper house or lower house parliament.
I see. Now, talking about new faces for candidates just now, some politicians, or I'm sure many of you have faced this, being youth yourself, people questioning the credibility of the youth in leadership roles. So when it comes to new faces here, are we looking at the younger generation specifically? What do you think the youth can bring to the table, Najwa?
So, as in my opinion, I think actually yes. At the first glance, we're looking for more new faces, and also as what we mentioned by my colleague just now, we want the youth participation in terms of the policymaker itself. However, it does not necessarily and specifically means only youth, but we also want more women, more minority people that being the face and being part of the policymaker itself. Not only the same faces all over again, the same people all over again, and then you just give all of those sort of promise and did none for us, and did none for even to make a better Malaysia. It is not just a promise, but it is a responsibility that need to do. That's why we need and demands for a change, for new faces, for new fresh thing, as in our nation itself.
Yeah. And there's also a caveat to these new faces, which is they are free from corruption, and also are credible enough to lead, in leadership roles. So there are also several initiatives here listed that tackles basic livelihood and security issues for youth. Free, like you said just now, free higher education for the B40, and subsidized fees for the M40s, as well as alongside other initiatives aimed at social protection, livelihood and employment. So these are demands that stems from issues in campus that we may not be aware of. So what's the situation on campus right now? If you can help shed some light on several issues that has led to these demands. How much of these issues as well you think is exacerbated by the COVID-19? So Najwa and Mujahid, whichever can go first.
I think the problem that I still seeing in the university, in my point of view as student, I would say because we are around of GE15, so I would say that the political participation in university itself is really underwhelming. Maybe because some of the reason is because they are no interest with the politics, but there are also reasons that they can't participate in the politics because they have several things that they must be obey with the government.
There's also obstacles for them to participate. Yeah.
For example, like when they have a scholarship, there are certain regulation that make they tied to the government. So that's one problem I would say in the university, which is the participation in politics is really underwhelming, and maybe related to the COVID-19, I would say the food price is still higher. Even before this, we already demand the reducing of the food price, the good price, but the price is still
very
high.
hard to basically eat at your own campus, right? What about you, Najwa?
So as actually I'm from the UM itself, what the main and current issue that always we face every single year, every single semester is actually about the lack of placement itself. In terms of the basic need, which the student doesn't have the allocation or even space to stay at the campus, because the campus itself in our university, this couldn't even provide for the amount of students in a university. So when we're staying in UM, right, within Kelang Valley area, the price to rent the house outside is very high. So students need to pay more just every day to go to the university. Not only that, the rental, the food price, and the transportation itself, which I think the government need to do something to cater this issue, to cater this matter in terms of insufficient placement and also the accommodation for the student itself.
And these are basic needs that need to be met in order for you guys to continue education well, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk more about this. So after this, we'll talk more about employability and issues that is being brought up with the reforms that you mentioned. So stay tuned with us. We'll be back. Welcome back to It's About You, where we talk about issues that matter to you. For today, we have Najwa, Hureen from UM and also Abdullah, Mujahid from Congress IIUM to talk about reforms or demands that university students or youth specifically are asking from their politicians heading on to GE15. So we talked a little bit just now about some of these reforms, political reformation, and also basic livelihood reforms, right? Now we talk about employability because it's a big issue, especially for undergraduate students, right? Who will face a world post-COVID-19 where inflation is high, cost of living is high, as rightly mentioned just now, and now there's also a risk of global recession probably next year. So how pertinent are reforms to address this issue, employability, and what's the implication of not doing so, Mujahid?
I think for employability, I just want to give an example, like the course in the university for me must be reviewed, which is the course in the university must be related to the job that offer outside. For example, what happened previously, like for food security and so on, maybe we can find a job for the agriculture part, and maybe the Minister of Higher Education itself must cooperate with the Ministry of the Agriculture to find the best solution that can solve the food security problem and then solve the job employability problem. For me, so what I want to highlight it is the cost must be reviewed, which is must be correlated to the job
so
that
job
has been
matching
offered.
skills a bit missing when it comes to getting youth employed. Another big issue that were mentioned in the reforms and the demands are, and also globally, I guess the issue is climate change. So when we look at the state of the country right now, with floodings, landslide, deforestation, we can't help to think about the impacts of climate change, not just, in Malaysia, but also globally, right? So how important is it for your elected reps to address this?
Yeah, actually, generally speaking, a lot of youth, especially my friend itself, have studied this kind of specific courses in terms of climate change. We know, right, there's a lot of courses that actually were being taught about this. And I think, in my opinion, the youth actually need to be involved to cater this matter. Because of what? Because we actually could provide some of the ideas from the research itself for us to solve the issue, to solve the climate change issues that being faced by us, whether it is in Malaysia or it is in global itself. And in line with the Sustainable Development Goal by the United Nations itself, where the objective is to urge the country to combat the climate change and its impact. And I believe that the government in Malaysia does not very well emphasize on this, and that's why up until now we couldn't even find the solution, because the party, whether it is being the student or even the researcher itself or even the people who are in this field, the profession, the professor in this field doesn't even being in one table to solve this issue. That's why I think we need to come up with that collaboration in terms of providing the solution for this climate change issue.
Yeah, so there's climate change, there's employability issues, there's also livelihood issues. There's a lot of demands from youth today, and it's valid because you guys will be, you know, well, me as well, I guess, slightly older youth, will be taking over, you know, the leadership or the world, basically. And we want the Malaysia that we live in now to be stable, to have good policies that can resolve some of the woes, some of the grievances that we have, right? So let's move back a little bit and talk about GE15 and politics. So let's factor in youth's involvement in politics, like you said just now. It's very underwhelming on campus. So let's look at the abolishment of Universities and Universities College Act. Especially for the audience here, do you mind explaining the importance of this reform and how it affects youth's participation in politics, Najwa?
So, as in my opinion itself, I think why the University Act itself need to be abolished is, first, we see when the voting age has been lowered down to 18, but in university we have a lot of restriction, a lot of act which actually restricting our right, limiting us from expressing this, doing this and those things. We cannot do this, we cannot even handle our financial thing itself, which actually it's hard for the student, it's hard for us to learn more, to explore more on how we want to create a more better leader, more better generation in the future. We really need to abolish this act if our vote really do matter for all of the politicians outside. Yeah.
Okay. So talking about abolishing this act so we can engage more youth in politics, so youth have more freedom to express themselves politically, not just, you know, being in a political party, but actually express their opinions and voice their demands, like what you guys are doing now, Gabungan Gerakan Mahasiswa, with all these reforms and demands. So drawing on to that, youth, like you said just now, are touted as the kingmakers of today's G15. And rightly so, with an addition of nearly 6 million young voters under 18, under Undi 18. So how involved are youth in politics among university students right now? Are most aware of today's political scene, or are they just a bit disheartened or facing political fatigue, likely, you know, leading up to G15? So with that, how do you also better engage youth in politics? Mujahid?
I would say the participation of youth in politics in the university after the amendment of AWKU, it's slightly increased. But like I said previously, it's still underwhelming, not satisfied. This is because the student, even we already amend the AWKU, but there are some, I would say, barrier or some obstacles that happen that make the political participation among students become underwhelming. Like for example, the election itself, the date for election itself, I'm very sad because why there are suddenly the announcement of this GE15. Because for me myself, for example, I'm just going back to the campus, and then I need to go back to my villages to make a vote. Maybe I'm from Peninsula, but how about from Sabah and Sarawak? They need to buying tickets, maybe reach 400 ringgit to go back.
It's something that probably people might have missed, you know, traveling to actually go to vote. So so how do you think we can engage youth better in politics then?
I would say we must to start give the awareness to youth in the university, because give a simple example for them, like all things in that happens, that must be related to the politics. Like for example, in economy instability, it is because of political instability. It is due to political instability. For example, the changes of government, then the investor will run because political instability, then our economy is dropped. That's I would say we must give the simple awareness to the student.
Okay. What about you, Najwa? What do you think of, I guess UM student, for example, their take on political scene today, and also how do we engage them better?
Yeah, actually, in UM itself, the student actually more involved in this politic, whether it be politic campus or even in in the national level itself. In UM, I think that the thing where we spread awareness, as being told by Mujahid just now, is when the student fronts, whether it be in our campus itself, are actually going to advocate the student. For example, right, when we're going to head for the upcoming general election, just from yesterday, I'm joining the student front itself in University Malaya, where we're advocating the student. We ask them to go back to vote, where your vote is very matters and such thing. Where I think it is the thing where the student itself need to exercise your vote, need to exercise your responsibility, and in terms of engaging them better is actually not really that much problem in our university, since the political awareness in University Malaya actually is quite high, where there's a lot of student friends in my university itself.
So it starts from political awareness, and I'm sure there are events, activities on campus that increases political awareness of students, right? In brief, both of you, what's your message to politicians that are chasing your votes right now, and also to young voters out there? Briefly, Mujahid first.
Previously, what we demand is not the biggest changes we want. We want only the change, but continuously happen. And also, the previous we also seeing the politician in the parliament. We investigate what we as student or citizen of Malaysia. What we want is just being the policy maker, not the problem maker for Malaysia, I would say.
That's a good way to put it. To the young voters, do you have any message to the young voters out there?
To the young voters out there, I would say, please go back to your village, cast your votes, even though it's need certain, maybe you need to.
Can be a bit difficult this time.
Maybe it can be difficult, especially my friends from Sabah and Sarawak. But for the changes, please do so.
Let's go for it. What about you, Najwa?
Yeah, for the politician itself, whatever party that you are in, my message is stop using any racial or religion card, but focus more on developing the nation itself. And being a politician is actually not a ticket or even a tool for you to gain any cheap publicity or even to gain any advantages for the sake of your own benefit, but actually you need to serve for the people. Not only make the sweet promises, but you did nothing or doing just a bare minimum for us, the citizen. That's for the politician. And as for the young voters, my message also, I echo whatever that been said by Mujahid just now. And yeah, we need to choose wisely. Whoever leader that we're choosing right now, that's the leader that will create for a better Malaysia. So we need to cast our vote, go back and exercise your right as a citizen, as a youngsters, to cast your vote. For whoever that you want to choose, it's up to you, but we need to exercise our right.
There you go, straight from the horse's mouth. Go out and vote. So that was Najwa from UM. and also Mujahid from IIUM, representing Gabungan Gerakan Mahasiswa, basically here to inform the people, inform the politicians out there, and inform the young voters out there that, you know, there are reforms that needs to be taken into consideration, and ahead of GE15, parties should consider this to put in their manifestos. So that's it. That's all we have for It's About Youth. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.